To the October 10th, 2023 regular meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council. This meeting will be followed by a work session tonight, and we have several items on each agenda. If you are here and wish to speak to the Village Council and staff under our comments from attendees, please sign a list which is on the table at the back of the room, and the clerk will bring that to me during the course of the meeting. And when we get to our comment period at the end of this regular session, we'll call on any of you who have signed up to speak. And you can make your comments on anything that we're discussing tonight or other issues, whatever you wish to do. If you're listening to this meeting on our live stream and you also want to make comments, public comments, you may send an email, which will go to the village clerk. The email address for that is publiccomments@vopnc.org. Public comments with 2 C's in the middle there at vopnc.org. Those emails will be delivered to the clerk, and the clerk will circulate that to members of the council and appropriate staff at a later date. Having said that, we welcome all of you here, whether you're on the live stream or here in the assembly hall with us tonight. And we'll move on into reports from the village manager and the village council members before moving through the rest of the agenda. So I'll call on Jeff Sanborn.
All right, thank you, John. A couple things that I'd like to comment on. The first is our downtown resurfacing. Despite a pretty tight operating window, it turns out the weather cooperated pretty well with us, and we were able to get that done with, I think, minimal disruption. It was a work in progress all the way through it, but everybody cooperated and kind of pulled together. We got a lot of compliments from downtown businesses on how well it did go in the end. The resurfacing is done now, and we expect that perhaps we'll have the restriping done by the end of the day tomorrow. If not tomorrow, perhaps Thursday, again, weather permitting. The DOT resurfacing of old NC2 also went off pretty smoothly. That resurfacing work is done now, and we're currently expecting the restriping and all the crosswalks and stuff to be put in maybe next week, maybe the week after that. So that's soon to be complete as well. The second thing I'd like to comment on is that I'm pleased to announce, or maybe remind a lot of folks, that we'll be dedicating the Jinsey Fallon Conference Room this Thursday at 2 o'clock. That's what used to be the council conference room, immediately adjacent to the assembly area or the reception area over next door. And again, that's 2 o'clock. We sent out some invitations to people that we knew would be interested, but it's certainly open to anybody that wants to come and join in that. So that concludes my report, John. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you very much for both reports. And it's good to see that the paving went on, I think, pretty much, as you've said, on schedule and with very few problems that I'm aware of. And also the reminder about Jinsey Fallon's renaming on Thursday. From the council, with respect to our partners and collaborators and stakeholders reports, I'll make 4 comments tonight. First of all, I'm sure you all have read, but if you have not, I want to inform you that the Pinehurst Elementary School has received the first A rating for a Moore County school. That was given and announced a few weeks ago. And we're very proud of the school, of the principal of that school, and all the teachers and administrators there that make it as highly rated as it is. As I said, I believe that's the first, or at least for quite a long time, A-rated school in Moore County. My second comment also has to do with Pinehurst Elementary School. Not only has the principal of that school been the steward of it to receive this A rating, as you have now been told, but she also received an individual award, and I want to read what that award has to do with. This is to Ashley Ciccone, who is the principal of the Pinehurst Elementary School, who has received the North Carolina Department of Public Instructions has awarded to Ashley Ciccone, principal of Pinehurst Elementary School, the department's first, that means the state's first, recipient of the True Trailblazers Science of Reading Award. Principal Ciccone is recognized for her visionary leadership in leading the entire school through the transitional process of embracing the science of reading. So we are doubly pleased with the results that Ashley has received at the school, but also that she's been recognized for this special award. My second report has to do with Duke Energy. David McNeil, who many of you will know and many of us have worked with, will be retiring at the end of this year. David has been a wonderful partner to the village in all times of thick and thin. And although some of the policies we always don't agree with, Duke Energy has been a great partner to us here in Pinehurst. So we wish him well. Thirdly, this is Fire Prevention Week. I have a message from Carlton Cole. I had asked him what events might be going on this week, and he wanted to inform us through this announcement that they have several events planned in the schools and in the daycare centers. And they'll have a tent available at Live After 5 on Friday to get further information about the programs of the fire department that keeps us safe. So we wish them well at that, and thank them and our entire fire department for their service to the community. And then finally, I want to report that, as has been reported, I did have an excellent experience in Dornoch, Scotland, signing the liaison agreement between Dornoch and Pinehurst. The reception there was very supportive, very extraordinary, looking into the future. And during this last week, the general manager of the Royal Dornoch Club was here in Pinehurst on pretty much an annual visit, which he makes. And he represents the club, not the town, but he's been very instrumental in helping to develop this agreement over the past year. And I had the privilege of introducing Neil Hampton, the general manager, to Jeff Sanborn, our village manager, and also to Tom Pashley, president of the resort. And in the discussions which we had, we already have come up with a few thoughts as to how this liaison will develop during the next year. So those are my reports. And with that, perhaps start on my right with Jeff Morgan.
Thank you, John. Only thing I wanted to report on is just reiterating the Pinehurst Elementary School getting the A rating. And the only thing I'll add to that, we had a lot of challenges from COVID. And to be able to come back and win this award, get this A rating, I think is extraordinary and really helps us out in our village overall. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Tom?
Hi there. On Tuesday, October 3rd, I attended the opioid municipal meeting in Carthage, where I was pleased to see the magnificent structure. I had never been in the hall before, and I did meet all the commissioners there. The opioid task force consists of Frank Kiss and John Ritter, two commissioners who impressed me as having a very hyperactive sense of responsibility, as shown by the wonderful results thus far with the opioid settlement funds and their management. The funds received to date number 1.5 million, of which over 700K has been allocated to 4 of the 10 strategies or community partners. They are the Recovery Housing Support, Early Intervention, Recovery Support Service, and Narcan distribution. Community partners include, at this time, First Health, Samaritan Colony, which is located in Rockingham, over 46 years of helping adult men with substance abuse and disorder. More Buddies, who follow the CAR, the CARE principles of Connect, available resources for education, mentoring youth and empowering families, and finally Adult and Teen Challenge and Boys and Girls Club of the Sandhills. All of these partners are very effective in their mission, which I believe to be saving the youth from themselves, really. Further information about the subject can be obtained through the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Service at the Opioid Substance Use Action Plan data dashboard. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Lydia?
Thank you, John. A couple of things. I think we all are aware of the growth pressures on North Moore County. at their recent Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting, we talked about, it's coming from North and Moore County, all the development up there. So the commissioners got together to discuss their vision for Moore County. Matt, this made me think of you and what we do in our retreat. The commissioners were asked to describe what they want, how they see Moore County, and this is the way. The pilot had a great article about it on the front page. It said they had a drawing board. On the drawing board were the words people, hospitality, beauty, and traditions. The commissioners focused on the county's character and small town feel. Doesn't that sound like what we say in our retreat? So it's really encouraging to hear that the commissioners have the same vision for Moore County that we have, especially with the growth pressures they have. And then second, I got to go to the retirement ceremony last Friday for Superior Court Judge Webb, and it was very well attended. It was a great ceremony. But it was special to me because Judge Webb swore me into the North Carolina bar 20 years ago in that courtroom. So kudos to Judge Webb for doing such a great job all these years. Thank you, John.
Pat?
Thank you. First of all, I want to wish everyone a happy Columbus Day. For those of you that celebrate it, it is a federal holiday. So it's mandated by a statute signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1968. So happy Columbus Day. Secondly, I want to mention that I had the opportunity to visit the Golf Pride business here, located out on Murdochsville Road, just by Pinehurst number 8 there, and truly an outstanding member of our business community, very engaged in Pinehurst itself and an internationally recognized firm. So kudos to them and what they do there. Number 3, I had the opportunity also to go visit the new Pinehurst number 10 golf course in its infancy, and was ridden around there. It's looking very nice. It's, of course, it's our neighbor in Aberdeen, but it's right on our border, right on our doorstep there, and of course, it's owned by Pinehurst Resort, which is headquartered right here in the village. So they're planning to open it up in April, and it looks like it'll be a real big addition to this area. The next thing I wanted to mention is I had the opportunity, and I saw some of my colleagues there at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting earlier this week. It was one of the largest turnouts of a Planning and Zoning Board meeting in over a year. It had to do with Pine Wild Phase 5, and I wanted to compliment Jack Farrell and those others on the Planning and Zoning Board, because I thought it was a very educational hearing, and they moved forward on a decision which will be reaching us sometime in the near future. So we have that to look forward to. And last thing I wanted to mention is and I mentioned this before, but I generally read the Police Daily Report, and I'm constantly amazed, sometimes at the workload, and also sometimes at the odd situations they're called into. But just yesterday, I couldn't help but notice, I counted it up, they had 129 calls that they had to respond to. Now, some of them had to do with, 9/11 hang-up calls and animal complaint and all. But they issued 36 citations for traffic citations. They issued 36 in one day. And they had another half a dozen where there were verbal or written warnings. So they're on the job and helping to keep our streets safe. And kudos to what they're out there doing. So thank you to them. And that's all I have to report. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Pat. We'll move on in our agenda then to a motion to approve the consent agenda. First, though, are there any corrections or changes or any issues in the consent agenda material that a council member wishes to discuss or hold back? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
That's a motion by Pat Pizzella. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Morgan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item number 4, presentation by the fiscal year 2023 business survey results. Jeff, want to introduce Matt as he comes forward, and I'll get out my notebook.
Here, of course, you all, Matt provided a summary of our resident survey results at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, and we're now able to follow through with a similar presentation on our business survey.
Matt, thank you very much for being with us. You're going to run your slides and speak right from there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. It's nice to see you all again. It's been a couple of weeks. So it's my pleasure to present the 2023 business survey results to you today. As a reminder, just like with our community survey, we utilize ETC Institute for their work with our business survey as well. Similar to the community survey conversation, we're going to go briefly over the purpose and methodology, provide some overviews, what those topics look like, and then provide a brief little summary. As a reminder as well, this is that 30,000-foot overview with what those findings look like, and we're going to be diving deeper into those over, as a staff over the next coming weeks as we prepare for the 2025 strategic planning retreats. That'll be starting up with the Senior Leaders Pre-Retreat in mid-November, and then culminating to the council pre-retreat meeting and retreats in December. So the 2023 business survey, the objective is to make sure that we objectively assess the quality of village services that are provided to businesses in Pinehurst, and also to identify ways that we can improve those services and the quality of those services that are provided to businesses throughout our community. As well as, and we find this very important as well, is to measure trends from previous surveys. So you'll see in these results as well, surveys from results from previous years to make sure that to see which direction we're going in certain areas. Their survey is 5 pages. It's also the 11th year that we've conducted the survey within the village. Similar to the community survey, it is conducted by mail and online to all known businesses in the village of Pinehurst. Now, last year, Village Council requested that we do a review of the businesses that were a part of the known business list that ETC has, and we provided that list to them this year. So our list included approximately 230 businesses that were known to us within the village, and then culminating with the list that they had, approximately 700 surveys were sent by mail to businesses throughout the village of Pinehurst. Yes,
You
ma'am.
said their list included how many?
230,
Okay,
yes.
that we did not have.
No, that's just 230. When we culminated the list together, so we provided a list to ETC Institute as well that can be buffered with the list that they have.
Okay.
So by combining both lists together, we wanted to ensure that we could get to all known businesses the best we could, so that we know for a fact those 230 that we provided received those mailings, as well as the supplementary list that ETC Institute provides.
Matt, I assume this captures sort of home businesses also?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's through the listing site in which they are provided. Yes.
So we went through their list just to satisfy ourselves that they were valid businesses that we cared to survey.
We combined our list with their list.
Okay.
Yes. That we are not able to cull their list. So it's their list and our list combined together.
No,
Yeah. So
only reason-
duplicates were removed.
Yeah,
The only
it's
reason-
something, I think it's something that we can examine in the future. I think the problem that we were trying to address based on last year's results was the perception that we had left some businesses out. So we wanted to be as inclusive as possible in this process.
Well, I think we thought we might have left some out, but we also were, didn't we say like every doctor's office? There were some that were in there that we questioned whether they needed to be
Yeah.
in there at all. So again, it's getting to the right list of businesses as we, okay.
Individual practices in a doctor's office building, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is something that we're going to continue to work on, but we do feel stronger based off of that conversation last year that the list that was provided was a stronger list than previous. But in previous years, the goal here is to get 75 responses, and we received 75 responses. So looking at general characteristics of the business community, draw your attention here, approximately 15% of those businesses that responded to this survey, again, this is a choice survey, they are able to respond, were relatively new, right? They were 0 to 5 years. And then with approximately 13% being about 20 or more years. So there's a wide swath there, but about 50% were within the last 5 years. When looking at the categories, you can see it's pretty well split out across 4 major categories here. 22% were in retail, about 19% were in restaurant and food services, and approximately 19% were in healthcare and social assistance. When looking at the size of the organizations within this survey, 54% were less than 10 total employees by number of organizational size, followed by 22% that had 10 to 24 employees, and then about approximately 15% had 25 to 49 employees. We also ask respondents whether or not they are a part of any of these 3 areas. Are you a member of the Pinehurst Business Partners? Are you a member of Moore County Chamber of Commerce? And is your business located within the village center? You can see approximately 32% were members of the Pinehurst Business Bureau Partners. Sorry, I keep wanting to say bureau instead of partners. 46.3% say that they are members of the Moore County Chamber of Commerce, and approximately 60% of respondents said that they were located within Village Center. When looking at perception, we first ask businesses whether or not their overall satisfaction with the overall feeling of safety. And so when looking at satisfaction and dissatisfaction, both within Village Center and not in Village Center, respondents felt that they were satisfied with their overall feeling of safety.
I think that's the first time I've seen 100% in any category. That's great.
Well, then this next slide will not be too much of a surprise for you either, because then we broke it down, just like last year, into categories of years, and again, 100%.
I think that's a combined of very satisfied and satisfied. That's probably why we're seeing it, because we're seeing it present a little differently than last time.
This is very satisfied, and neutrals that are located here. So it's not. So I would say another way of saying it is 100% not dissatisfied. When looking at businesses who are overall satisfied with the quality of the business environment, and I will say there's one caveat here. In the past, we used to say their business quality of life. And with council, with you all last year during the retreats, and with us internally, we kept saying, well, what is a business quality of life? And is there any confusion around that? And really what we were asking is the quality of the business environment in which they operate. So that's where this question is a slight variation from previous years. But as you can see, approximately 82% within the within Village Center were satisfied with their overall quality of the business environment, with approximately 85% claiming satisfaction within that are not located within the Village Center.
Even quality of business environment, what does that mean? You don't have to give me an answer. I have to ask myself what it means.
Well, I think asking the question this way is much better than what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it implies, certainly to me, is the atmosphere and the environment in the village of Pinehurst, either the core or wherever the business is located, conducive to your conducting your business? Do we have enough parking? Do we have enough directional signage if the village is responsible for any of that? Those sort of things that help create a friendly business environment.
Yes. And the one, to that point, the business environment is also allowed to be defined by the respondent themselves. So it could be those elements, it could be others, it could be some more weighted one way than another, but it's their interpretation of what their business environment is. Yes. So similarly, we did break this down looking at, because there are dissatisfaction ratings within these results as well, looking at those businesses that have been here within certain years of operation. And so you can see, from both the 6 to 10 year, but really those 6 to 15 year time frame, we saw approximately 29% of respondents that showed some level of dissatisfaction with the business environment. The 20-plus year and the 0 to 5 year had approximately 11% that showed some level of dissatisfaction with the business environment. We then asked respondents about their, whether or not they would recommend the Village of Pinehurst as a business location. And I skipped ahead on that. There we go. And so this is, as I mentioned earlier, we do like looking at trends and historical trends just to see if there's anything that stands out to us. And you can see, although we are approximately 1% that show not likely to recommend, at 12% relative to last year at 11%. We do see a very small percentage change across the last couple of years there.
Do we have a margin of error in here?
The margin of error in this is going to be quite large. It's approximately 11%. And the reason why is because, again, the size of the community is very, business community is small with responses. Yes. When looking at respondents between in-village center versus those not in village center, you can see there's approximately 15% that responded that they would not likely recommend Village of Pinehurst as a business location. And those outside of village center were approximately 12% that said they would not likely recommend VOP as a business location. So we broke this one down even a little bit further here. Just to look at, again, those year spans. And a couple of things that jumped out to me, first of all, those earlier businesses, those 0 to 5 year in operations, approximately 22% of those that responded. Those mid-year time, 6 to 10 years of operation, approximately 21%. And then those 20-plus year organizations, those that have been here for the long haul, it's approximately 9%.
Matt, I think it's worthwhile just in noticing the chart you gave us in the book.
Yes, sir.
There is more of a breakdown in that talks about 38% were very likely to recommend, 30% were likely, 20% were somewhat likely, and then you had 5% is not likely, and then 7% not likely at all.
Yes.
Which we're kind of combining on that, but it's not, and I appreciate your green covering all that, but the point of it is there is a little bit of a breakdown. Just want to make sure we're highlighting that.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So for this, we broke down if they had mentioned some likelihood versus not likely. But to your point, yes, that is broken down further within the charts. We also ask, again, for trend purposes, how businesses rate the atmosphere in the village today compared to 2 years prior. And as you can see, over the years, it's been approximately, between 12 and 15%. FY20 and FY21 are the two lowest, and part of that could potentially be because of COVID. Now, when we look at satisfaction with village services and priorities for improvement, we look at, the first question is, how would you rate the Village of Pinehurst customer service? And so here I broke it down within the 3 categories: very good, good, or poor. And as you can see, approximately 60% said good, 5% said poor, and 34.5% said very good. Another way, again, just if you caveat this, 95% approximately said that customer service was either good or very good. We also break down within certain categories of community services. And as you can see on the screen here, they have various levels. And for purposes, I broke it down for each category. So you have those 5 different categories. The one caveat I want to provide on this slide, though, is that these are of those who used the service within the past year. So for instance, you can have, and actually, I'm looking at them right here, there are less people who said that less businesses who said that they used fire emergency response last year than police emergency response last year. So those percentages are going to be off a little bit, so I'm going to try to normalize it with numbers as well. So just to draw your attention, the approximate 10% of police emergency response was that had either dissatisfaction or was either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. That 10% approximates to about 2 respondents. The same is for the 6% of police patrol that showed some level of dissatisfaction. The village hall front desk, I'm sorry, not the village hall front desk, that's 100%. The fire inspections had approximately 4% level of dissatisfaction. Again, that was 2 respondents. During planning, down in planning and zoning, approximately 13% showed some level of dissatisfaction. Again, that was 2 respondents. And then the same for code enforcement, there were 2 respondents at the 14%. So I just wanted to try to normalize that within the usage of those categories. We ask respondents to rate their top 3 village services and departments most important to your business, and we summarize those. And as you can see, and perhaps not too surprisingly, the top 3 of them deal with public safety: police emergency response, fire emergency response, and police patrol. When looking at satisfaction with overall quality of services provided to businesses by the village, 89% of respondents said it either met or exceeded their expectations, followed with approximately 11% saying that it was below their expectations. Similar to the other categories, I broke this down further based off of the individual sections that we ask about those various areas, and I provided that 5-point Likert scale in front of you as well. And just a couple of items to draw your attention to. There were 4 areas that caught my eye as potential for more discussion in the future. But looking at creating and promoting special events, approximately 15% of respondents showed some level of dissatisfaction there. The availability of employee and customer parking around business was approximately 36% of some dissatisfaction. Supporting business growth and development showed approximately 19% dissatisfaction. And then level of involvement in local decisions was approximately 17.5% showed some level of dissatisfaction as well. And so when looking at potential areas for focus and improvement, these may be areas for continued conversation as we continue to move forward within the strategic planning retreats. However, there are many, there are areas up there, all available for discussion. We ask for respondents' level of agreement when it comes to their most recent contact with village government staff. And here, obviously, you can with the results on the screen, but the one that caught my eye was the issue was resolved promptly. There's approximately 16% that had some level of disagreement, and this kind of the reason why I flagged this is it kind of reminded me of our community survey results as well. We did have some conversation about prompt response and what that looks like. What does prompt response mean? But that is one level one area I just wanted to highlight. But as you can see, village staff competency, village staff courteousness, and village staff responsiveness to needs, we're all we're over 90% when it comes to not dissatisfied or not disagreeing with those statements. And then last for this section, looking at level of satisfaction, specifically with community development, there are 3 main categories: signage regulations, zoning ordinances, and historic district guidelines. The level of dissatisfaction, really, when it comes to business signage regulations, was approximately 12%. Same with zoning zoning ordinances. Historic district guidelines had approximately 5% level of dissatisfaction. And then looking at communication and event impacts, overall satisfaction with the job that the Village of Pinehurst does when it comes to communicating with business owners. You can see here that about 38% were satisfied, with approximately 9.5% being very satisfied. There's quite a large neutral category here as well, but approximately 25% showed some level of dissatisfaction when it came to the job the village is doing communicating with business owners.
Matt, I think this is an important slide here, and I say this more for the council. anecdotally, walking around, I'll tell you that the number one complaint I hear from business owners, at least in the historic area, has been communication. And I think this shows right here, because you do have the large neutral aspect on that, and this may be an area for us to certainly focus on for improvement.
And I think, Jeff, you're absolutely right, and I think one of the reasons for that, and an area I think we've been trying to work on, but we have much to do, is finding the right organization to work through. We know Pinehurst Business Partners is the only organized business representative group, and it functions well, and I think we have a pretty good communication stream with them, but they only represent, 30% or 32% of the total businesses. And so getting to the rest of that group is the hard part.
I concur with that.
And but it sticks out here very clearly that we need to do more to find a communications method with all the businesses.
We do ask respondents to let us know the best ways that we can communicate with them. And as you can see at the top, approximately 65% said a monthly business e-newsletter, some type of email correspondence would be the best way, followed by personal calls and visits and direct mail. Social media is up there at approximately 25% as well. And the one thing I'll mention about this as a general statement is that we internally as staff look at this as well and continue to look at different ways in which to communicate outwardly as well. So these are, we took note, for instance, of email, personal calls, direct mail, et cetera, when it comes to better ways to build up that communication structure.
Did this surprise you at all, Matt, this particular result, that people were highly dependent upon emails as opposed to other social media and this sort of thing?
Not personally, no. I would usually, and I'm not, I'll say this, I'm not surprised by email being by far the number one response. Yep.
Playing me back already.
So Tom, I now know what I sound like, and I want to apologize for everybody who's had to be listening to my voice, because now I understand. Whew. So it's okay. The impact on events on the business community, we ask this quite a bit every year as well. Now this is looking at, I write this up by positive impact percentages, and the no impact, again, is that yellow marking here. So you can see that there are some that have some element of negative impact. Live After 5 has approximately 7% as the largest. But one of the questions that we hear, and I'm sure one of the questions that you all hear about, is what the impact is of these events. And so you can see the highest one, most positive impact, at least according to respondents, is looking at the Holly Arts and Crafts Festival, followed by the Farmers Market and the tree lighting. And then the least positive impact, potentially is the way putting that, is looking at Live After 5, Shakespeare in the Pines, and other cultural activities.
Matt, is there any way to break down as to the respondent's location for this? Like if you, let's just say the hospital responded, they're probably not really going to be affected by the Holly Arts Festival, but maybe the village or deli is affected more by it.
Absolutely.
Look at that. So you're able to see that a little better?
Yes, we can break it down by, again, if they self-selected within Village Center or not in Village Center. So we can provide that.
Yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile to be able to see the downtown businesses that are affected by downtown activities. I think that would be helpful.
I think we have shown that to the council in the past during the retreat process, so we'll break out a lot of that detail later on.
Look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
I agree, Jeff. I do know that it's a part of our packet for the retreat, but I can make sure it's included.
Thank you.
And so, just a brief summary here. There's a high level of satisfaction when it comes to village services. Overall, as you can see, I just highlighted the four up there: fire emergency response, police emergency response, our front desk, and police patrol. Again, a lot of that also looks very similar to when you're looking at public safety. That's also, as a reminder, that some of the most important when it comes to their businesses. As I showed on that previous slide, most important to them are those public safety elements as well. 31% of those that responded felt that the overall business environment was better than 2 years ago, and 44%, though, felt that there was no change, but that the atmosphere overall is good. So, again, approximately 75%. Most important village service, as I just mentioned, public safety and response. And this last element here, talking about 68% of respondents would be very likely or likely to recommend the village as a business location to friends, family, and coworkers. If we add that somewhat likely element to it, because again, it's a 5-point Likert scale where there's somewhat likely as one of those choices, it's approximately 88%. I broke it down just a little bit more here just to show the top two elements. Those other two elements that say, not likely or not at all likely are approximately 12%. And so I'll briefly pause here, but first I just want to reiterate these results as well as the community survey results are online and available for public to view. And that these results, as well as the open-ended comments that are part of the results, are going to be further explored during the strategic planning retreat. So we're going to continue to dive into this. We're going to continue to segment the information and get prepared for the retreats coming up in the coming months. With that being said, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Matt, thank you. Just a couple of questions from myself, points that we've already highlighted, but just to emphasize them because I think they're the areas that really will need to be worked on in the business community. And I'm glad to see that the sort of atmosphere, the question that Lydia was asking, how do we know what the business environment really is and what is that? I think that's obviously scores high, but it also points out that the things we do, paving the roads, planning the landscaping in the core village especially, painting, all those things we do to make the atmosphere of the village, especially in the core, those are very important things for us to continue to be able to do. And the recent efforts under Jeff Batten's stewardship and others is really important. The things that I think obviously you need to be worked on, as we just talked about, are event management and how that can help or not some of our businesses as they've reported, and of course parking, and then the local decision making. I'm not sure, unless we find a way to establish the business group in a larger sense beyond just the 32% of businesses that are in Pinehurst Business Partners. The local decision making question that came up here several times was of interest to me in trying to figure out, well, how can we do that better? How can we communicate more? And how can we hear back from the business sector in a way that we haven't tried before? So I think those are the challenges going forward. Questions, comments from other council members?
Yeah, I've got one also. If you were to go back to slide 31 on your slide deck. And then
31, Jeff?
On his
Right there,
slide deck,
okay.
yes. And if you look at the page 35 for the handouts that we got, which talks about the different years, what I found of interest on there was that if you look at the results from 2020, and then 2021, 2022, then back to 2023, for the most of the items that you're talking about there is kind of a U. Basically, we had a drop, which would correlate with COVID. That was across the board. And then it's responding back, and within margin of standard error that you have, with the exception of Live After 5. And Live After 5 has significantly dropped as for how businesses feel about the impact of the following events in the village center that they have on their businesses. So that one did not come back up. That one continued to drop. And the Live After 5 concerts was at 26% for 2023, and in 2020 it was at 51%. And that is of statistical significance. So I just throw that out there as a kind of a U shape that we're following, and let's just take it
And
in
we
stride.
moved the location, so
Yes.
the historical results aren't really comparative anymore.
Well, it actually says they're comparative in a negative way,
Yeah, well,
which you would expect from moving it.
we're not, because of the move, we're not providing that downtown positive impact to businesses.
I concur.
Yeah.
So I'll highlight that. Thank you.
Other questions?
Questions?
Yes, I have a few questions. And just as a reminder, as I voiced last year, I'm a big skeptic of this business survey. We have 11% margin of error, and we have 75 respondents. So what does the Moore County Chamber of Commerce think of our survey? What does the Pinehurst Business Partners think of our survey? What do they do with it? Do they share it with their members? What happens? It's on our website, or we provide it to them? What do they do?
So are you asking what we do to?
No, what did they do? Do they say,
I'm,
come in and
I'm
brief us?
unaware. I'm unaware of any specific activities that they
They
do
do
regarding
with
the survey.
these results that we publish? Okay. Well, that's what I wondered. So let me go to a few issues that touch a little bit on what Dr. Morgan referenced. Because although I question the usefulness of the survey with a 11% margin of error, I find the data, the historical data, very intriguing. If you go to question 4, the level of satisfaction with the village in various areas from 2020 to 2023. There are 8 areas, and the answers are by percentage of respondents who answered very satisfied or satisfied.
Pat, if it's okay, can you help me orient me to what you're looking at right now?
10, level of satisfaction.
In the document itself or in the slide deck?
No, in the document itself.
Okay.
I went through your whole, I went through the entire.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm which way I was looking.
Yeah. There are 8 categories, from landscape maintenance all the way to level of involvement in local decisions. And it covers the years 2020 to 2023. In every single area, the level of satisfaction declined over 4 years. I mean, that's, whether it's the margin of error or what, that's not a reason to pop champagne bottles. I mean, every single category. You can go from, in creating and promoting special events in 2020, people, 72% gave us a big green light, and this year was 64%. Now, if you go to question 11, page 24, how satisfied are you with the job the Village of Pinehurst does communicating with business owners? Again, looking at the trend line from 2020 to 2023, there has been a drop of 22%.
And we're doing more.
Okay? So, I mean, and it's a trend. It's a significant drop. I mean, again, it's 75 respondents. I understand that, but, you know, this is the food we're given. Okay? The next one is.
If I may, Pat, just real quick. If
Yeah.
that's okay. I would just say, I think that that's a valid point, and I think that the one element where we're looking at it currently is we're looking at what is the level of dissatisfaction that people are telling us that they are dissatisfied with the communications efforts in which we're looking. And so there's quite a bit when looking at those dissatisfaction trends, which is what we highlighted quite a bit here, but that is not to negate. I think you bring up a very valid point when looking at purely those who said that they were satisfied in some way, that they've chosen either satisfied or very satisfied, that we have been seeing that decrease. We haven't been seeing nearly as much of an increase in those saying dissatisfied, which would also make us think that there's a larger neutral category that may be being, built in there because they have to be going somewhere. But I just want to orient what people saw versus what we're looking at now.
Has there been any kind of a change in the split between downtown businesses responding versus businesses that are not downtown?
I don't have that in front of me, but I'm happy to look at it. From my memory, that there shouldn't be a large percentage difference.
Yeah.
But I'll confirm that.
Let me go to question 12A. How would you rate the following characteristics of the village website, which I, as people know, am a champion of? Over the 4-year period, under the question of easy to navigate, there's been a 22% decline. That is significant, even in the margin of error world. I mean, theoretically, it could be 11% decline or it could be 33% decline. And the same is in the availability of info on village services. It's a 14% decline from 75% in 2020 to 61%. How satisfied, question 12B, how satisfied are you with the village's website? It's gone, again, a decline from 80% in 2020 to 70% this year. So I'm pointing these things out. Obviously, they weren't raised in the summary, but I made a point, probably because of my general skepticism of the business survey. And I think I did talk to some business owners, and they're not fond of this exercise. So I guess that's my takeaway from talking to a lot of them. Why do you do it? There's 75 respondents, and you got a margin of error that's double digits. So, which is one of the reasons that motivated me to go through this page by page. And what we're seeing is a steady pattern of decline. And it dovetails a little bit with the community survey that we looked at a few weeks ago, where 82% of the amount of categories that we viewed, there were 16 out of 93 that either stayed where they were or increased. But the remainders decreased, and that's 82%. So the purpose of data, obviously, is to use it for management information purposes, so we, as a village, can make better decisions regarding our constituents. And I think we need to study carefully why there are trend lines this way. I don't have the answers. You're
I
a
agree.
professional. You do this all the time. I mean, you spend a lot of your time in this area. I don't. But I do read the data that you provide. And I think the businesses out there read it with a lot of skepticism. And what they think about is, I keep telling you I'm not happy with things. And you're not correcting things. Now, I'm not saying they're being very specific, sort of a generality of a way that they express themselves, but I hear it, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Pat, I mean, I just want to comment on that. As we've discussed before, I think in some of these analyses, community survey, the business survey, and past years too, the fact that there's a decline, an improvement or a decline, if it's a couple of points, not to be worried about, in my opinion.
I agree.
If it's a significant drop or increase, it's something to be noted. So there's probably some factor of sensitivity analysis or something, Matt, that you would know all about on that. But I think we need to be aware whether these declines or increases are substantial or small. That lays a different picture once we know that.
Mayor, I've only referred to the ones that were significant.
Okay,
I didn't
yeah.
nitpick the ones, the 1 and 2%. These were double digits, 22% in some category. That's what catches one's eye and gives credibility to the critics of this. So go ahead. Thank you.
I'll just mention a few things real quick. I understand, and I agree that both in the community survey and the business survey, there's quite a bit for us to continue to look into and to prepare for robust conversations as we prepare for the strategic planning retreats. And also, as I mentioned, there's a general rule where when looking at where to put a lot of focus and is to look at where people are truly dissatisfied with their results. And so we've been looking at satisfaction versus dissatisfaction, which is slightly different than what the results are within this. That doesn't negate, as I mentioned, there is a decline that is seen when those who are choosing to pick very satisfied or satisfied. And those are things that I myself, and I think that we're going to continue to look into, again, to further dissect in the future. When it comes to the high margin of error, I agree with you that 11% is incredibly high. I would just say for myself, I would be happy to see that margin of error decrease by having more participation and more respondents in our business surveys in the future. As a general trend in the last couple of years that I've been here, and even this year when we spent time trying to create a more robust list to ensure that we had a more encapsulating view of our business community, ETC Institute shared it with me as well, that they continue to see across communities a slower response rate when it comes to businesses responding to any type of surveys, satisfaction surveys that are out there within the field. So it's not abnormal for us, we're in the sense of that response, but it did, in order to get to 75 responses this year, I believe we had to open it up for at least another week longer than what we did last year in order to get those 75 responses. And yet at the same time, we felt more confident than I think we've ever felt when it came to the actual list that we provided to our to actually get outreach to our businesses. So it's a push and pull right now, but I will just say, like I said, for myself, I would love to see that margin error close by having a higher response rate on the survey.
How much do we pay for the business survey?
I believe it's approximately $5,000 off the top of my head. Yes,
How much was that?
$5,000.
Thank you.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting too, because notwithstanding all of the valid points that Pat brought up, 88% still would recommend the village as a place to do business. So that's a pretty high, if we're messing up in so many areas, but have that high percentage of people who would recommend the village as a place to do business, it's not adding up. You would think if it's as bad as these declines in these survey results show, that would come down significantly, but it's not. So we must be doing something right. And
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to me, you want Matt's answer, but
no.
to me, it's like the community survey, which is a more robust report. We have more history with it. We have more data, so the margin of error is less. To me, it all boils down to this. Whether it's the community survey or the business survey, the Village of Pinehurst is doing a pretty good job, an excellent job in many areas. There are some areas to work on in both. And here in the business survey, as we've talked about a couple times here tonight, there's 3 or 4 areas that the businesses want us to look into. And it would be nice to be able to figure out a way, which I think is pretty obvious for Matt, to isolate the core businesses, or we'll call it our small and middle-sized businesses, as opposed to the larger companies that are within the area, businesses in the village as well as out. Size matters as well. So once we can find a way to communicate within those groups, I think we'll have a much better result in some of these areas that are of concern.
I think it's also important, I brought this up right at the start, and we talked about how likely are you to recommend the village as a business location to friends, family, and coworkers on the chart there, and I identified there was a pretty significant chunk that was somewhat likely. Yes. Then you had likely, then you also had very likely, and it was very distributed on there. So very likely was 38%, likely was 30%, somewhat likely was 20%, and then not likely 5%, and then 7% for not likely at all. When you kind of group them all together, it's easy to make it sound like, hey, everybody's likely to recommend it, okay? But you have 20% that's somewhat likely. And I throw that out there again because we are seeing some data in there that doesn't necessarily jive, okay? And I think it's important for us to consider that as we're looking at all of this. We have a lot of work we can do. And we get to our strategic planning and talking about that and deciding how we're going to allocate resources and things like that. I think this is helpful for us. And I certainly take Patrick's comments, and he brings those up, and I think they're very valid points on areas that we have gone down across the board. I also have heard in the village where businesses are not necessarily fond of this, and they're questioning the validity of it. From what I'm reading here, this actually seems to represent a lot of what I've heard before, where there are things that are going down. So I'm not sure it's not a valid instrument here. It's showing that we're going down in areas where we have a lot of work to do. And I don't want to call it unvalid when it makes us look not as good as before. So let's take it and let's use it as an instrument to make us better.
Other questions? Tom, did you have any questions on this tonight? Can you get your microphone right there, Tom? Make sure it's green.
Would you call it apathy, why we're not getting responses faster and more voluntary? I mean, I don't understand it. I really don't.
I'm unsure as to why that is. The only thing that I am sure about is, again, because seeing that the difficulty in getting those responses, I did reach out, like I said, to our partner and just said, are we similar to others, or are we an anomaly? And we are very much similar to other communities. So it's that's the only area I feel comfortable with responding to. I'm not sure it's exactly why why there is difficulty specifically with getting those responses.
I think part of the fundamental problem is because of the small size of the business community, we have to get a much greater proportion of our businesses to respond in order for it to be a representative sample. So, you know, it's a lot easier for us to get 700 or 800 residents to respond than it is to get 75 businesses to respond.
Yes, absolutely.
Other questions for Matt? All right. Matt, thank you very much.
You all.
As always, appreciate your statistical help. And at the retreat, you'll have even more opportunities. I'll move on to our next item of business, discussion and consideration of the adoption of the SMPO Memorandum of Understanding. Jeff, do you want to speak to that?
I sure will. I don't really have a presentation prepared or anything. We've been keeping you up to date of this process. As we've walked through it with our partner communities that we've been working with in the formation committee. And what we have here is an opportunity for you to consider adoption of the MOU that was presented at the last formation committee meeting and ultimately voted on. I let you know what happened in that whole dialogue and process. Aberdeen did approve this last night. It's on Southern Pines' agenda for tonight as well. And I think you just leave it at that. This is your opportunity to consider adoption of this MOU.
Just a question for the village
Pat,
manager.
go ahead, yeah.
We have another meeting scheduled for this, when, the SMPO?
Next
No, it's
Thursday.
October 19th. It's a week from
wait.
Thursday. Yeah.
A week from
Thursday at 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll be updating the group as a whole as where we all stand on adoption.
Now, Jeff, what we're looking at here in the memorandum of understanding, to the best of my knowledge, there's been no or little change to that from what we've seen in prior meetings, correct?
No substantial change to what was originally drafted about 2 months ago.
Yeah, okay, so to one degree or another, council had seen this in the past, and you've had it over the past several days to look at. Are there any questions about this? In my mind, the memorandum is, well, after the different meetings we've had going on several months now, it's very consistent with what has been suggested to us by state officials. And to the best of my knowledge, is very much supported by all or nearly all of the towns as far as we know, and everybody will be voting on that over the next few weeks. So my experience over the past few months with Jeff and Pat is that this is something we need to sign. It's consistent with where we've been headed, and we should take that vote. Are there any, Pat, did you have anything on that in your, because you've been to one meeting I was not at on this subject, but
Yeah, no,
MOA?
we're almost at the end of the journey. We do have a statutory deadline to provide a document to the Department of Transportation, which then they review and forward on to the governor. And so that this can be in place on December 31st, and we can begin functioning. And then, like any newly formed organization, we'll figure out what works and what doesn't work, and whatever changes we may or may not need to make. But I think fundamentally, the document is sound to begin this SMPO as required by law. So, sorry.
Other questions? for
I
Jeff
have a
and-
comment, you know, and I've been to the past 2 or 3 meetings, and they got a little heated. But the gentleman, I think he was from Pine Bluff, he sat over here.
Mhm.
And I loved what he said. He summed it all up. He said, no roads are going to be put in the next, 3 months. He said, let's get this thing going. And then as we see the growth in the north part of the county, if we want to bring them in, fine. But I thought it was reasoned, it was practical. And and coming from a small town, I appreciated it. He was from Pine Bluff, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
No,
Pine Bluff.
Whispering
baseball.
Pines,
Oh.
I think,
Oh,
No,
it's Pine Bluff.
no, I think it was the fella
next to him.
next to
Yeah.
me, and then the Whispering Pines one was a little more of a journey, but
Yeah,
he-
yeah. But
he
like,
had-
coming from a small town like Pine Bluff, who was very realistic and said, let's get this thing going. And then if we want to expand the boundaries, we can. Boom.
Yes, that was the consensus of it, yeah. I agree.
Any other questions?
Would you like a motion?
Is there a motion, please?
I move to approve Resolution 23-45 to enter into the SMPO MOU.
That's a motion by Lydia Bosch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Pat Pizzella. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously, and this will be taken to the October 19th SMPO meeting. Thank you, Jeff. We come then to other business, and I think we have one piece of other business, Jeff?
One piece of other business, Mike Newman has an update for the council on our court case with Kevin Drum.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, folks. I appreciate you having me. I was going to give this to Jeff, and Jeff said, well, why don't you brief council since other business is coming up? Just to update you on the Kevin Drum litigation,
Jeff, make sure you have the microphone.
as
right
you
there.
may recall, on September 11th, we filed a motion, the village did, a motion for judgment on the pleadings to dismiss his lawsuit. That matter was heard by Judge Webb on September 25th. At the beginning of that court hearing, Mr. Drum had 5 claims. 4 of them concerned a special meeting or a closed session that had occurred in 2021. The 5th claim had to do with whether council's use of email correspondence violated the open meetings law. At the beginning of that court hearing, Mr. Drum advised the court that he was dismissing all of his claims, the first 4 claims, concerning the closed session, leaving only for the court's consideration the issue of email correspondence. Judge Webb at 4:40 today emailed all counsel, told us that we had prevailed. He is granting our motion on the email matter. I don't know if you all want me to read his message to council. Happy to do that. Again,
Could
he
you do
said
that,
this-
please, Mike?
This is his ruling as of 4:40 today. Good afternoon, council. The court, after a careful examination of documents in the court files, briefs, case law, statutory law, oral arguments, and Article 53 open meetings and other legal requirements for local government boards, Coates Cannon, North Carolina local government law, and an email from Ms. Lydia Bosch forwarded to Defendant Drum on or about October 14, 2021, all authored by Professor Freda Bluestein, David M. Lawrence, Distinguished Professor of Public Law and Government, School of Government, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The court finds that defendant's motion for judgment on the pleadings filed September 11, 2023 should be and is hereby allowed. Mr. Hartzog and Mr. Newman are to prepare an order for the court and circulate it to Ms. Martin for any objections as to form. The order and alternate proposed order, if any, shall be forwarded to the court by email as an attachment in Word capable of being edited. As is this court's custom and practice, I will execute an acceptable order and provide it to the Moore County Clerk of Superior Court for filing and distribution to all counsel of record. So we will be preparing an order pursuant to Judge Webb's instructions, and I will keep the litigation committee posted as to all developments. That's it.
Any time frame attached to this, the continuation and
We will be
filing?
filing our proposed order at his direction tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Any questions, council?
No.
Thank you for being here, Mike. Appreciate the information.
I do.
Is there any other business
Yeah,
from council or others? Pat?
Yeah, I just had two quick items. One was the Citizens Academy that's now on our website.
Yep.
Could we get a quick little briefing of it? I read the website. Is it something we do annually, or is it something new we're reviving? Because I don't recall it in the past.
We haven't done it in several years.
That's why.
But it is a program that we have done in the past. It's a 4-day program that citizens can sign up for.
Anybody?
We're full now, so
Oh, okay.
I guess that's the good news. The bad news is if somebody else wants to do it, we'll have to wait around for the next opportunity.
Okay. And thank you for that. Second question is, many months ago, we discussed this possibility of seeking grant money from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Whatever happened to all that?
They have not awarded those grants yet. They're doing it, well, I'll answer to the
Meeting,
extent
right?
I know it. They're
Yeah.
doing it in their August meeting.
Yeah, I think we're ahead of that, but Doug Willardson is here to answer that question. Please, Doug.
Yeah, so we applied for money associated with the harness track and moving one of the barns. So
Gotcha.
that application did go in.
It was just pending with them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think their decisions were going to be made before the end of the year.
No, I think it's at they're
next-
at
it's their
least
next
forming a
meeting.
committee to look at it at their next meeting.
It's, they meet Tuesday, October 24th, and we have a meeting that day, so I can't be there.
Okay. Any other business from council?
Just a recommendation that at some point, let's say before the end of the year, the calendar year, if we could get a briefing on preparations for the U.S. Open from a village standpoint, things that we're doing, getting ready to do, expectations, ways, well, the community involvement, and things like that. I think that would be of benefit for us to hear that, and if there's anything else we think we may be able to do to make this go over well, be able to have input.
In other words, the village's participation in the open events and whatnot. What
Effectively,
we'll be
yeah.
doing at our
But
own
what,
initiative.
what it is, what we're doing to prepare for it, the biggies that come right across the border, how's the traffic management plan, what's the additional police force, things like that. But there's also, I'm sure, 100 things I'm not thinking about right now that we will be able to hear about. And again, I think it's worthwhile for us to all hear what our preparations are and see if there's other things we can do to make it better.
Yeah. And of course, we heard from the USGA as to their plans a couple meetings ago. So appropriate now,
Correct.
I know that staff's already working on this, so that will come up at maybe our next meeting, Jeff, or over the next couple of meetings.
Not the next meeting.
Probably the next. Good
That's going to
point.
be a full plate.
Maybe in November. We're already on warning, right? Okay.
To that point, Carla, who runs the, I was going to say fish market, farmer's market, asked what our plans were for downtown, and I asked Doug, and Doug said, I guess you're meeting with the USGA. There are things going on behind the scenes about what we're going to be doing downtown, and then they were going to come to us once they sort that out. So is that
SGA is very much taking the lead on all of that
Yeah.
this go around.
no surprise?
Which is a little different from past opens, but that's the way it is this year. Okay. Any other business? All right. Do we have any comments from attendees? Nobody has signed up. Is there anybody here who has comments for the village council under our regular meeting? Comments from attendees? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the regular meeting and move into our work session?
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
That's a motion by Pat Pizzell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Morgan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There is nothing opposed, so we'll move into our work session. I think a few minute break might be warranted here. All right, we'll take a break till it's 6:45. We'll come back sharp at 6:55, please. Whatever that is, 4:55. I'll get it right. 5:55. Thank you. Up 10 minutes.